short sleeves, or somebody doesn't care about the cyclone bomb. It's a state of mind.
Test, test.
So we good, Dallas? Cool. Right. Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out on this nice spring day. We're going to try to move through this as quickly as possible so we can get folks home. If you would join me, Dallas, could you provide an invocation and pledge? Thank you.
Father, we come to you just now. We recognize you as a sovereign over this world and over the weather. And Father, we know we need the moisture here in Colorado and Elbert County, and we're thankful for that. Father, we know with the impending storm that it comes with some risk. And so we just pray that you'll be with our road and bridge guys as they're out plowing and serving us. Father, that they'll be safe throughout the day and the night as they work. Father, for our first responders and the sheriff's office and the police forces and the EMTs and the fire departments, Father, as they get called on in this storm, we just pray for safety for them, for wisdom. Father, for our citizens that are having to travel, we just pray for safety and for wisdom for them. And Father, just help people to know that they need to make wise decisions. Father, just now as we proceed with this meeting, we pray for your peace and for your spirit to be present. Father, that we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. Father, we just pray for clarity of mind, clarity of thought. And Father, may our decisions please you. In the name of Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So the time is 9:02. We'll officially open the meeting. Dallas, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Pettit.
Present.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here. Okay, first item we have is approval of the agenda. I understand we got a few folks that aren't able to be here today, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda with a couple of changes. One is that we take out G6 and G4, and I move that we approve it with those amendments.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with amendments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item we have is the consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as shown.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item we have is elected official staff reports. Alex, could you give us just a quick update on storm prep? I know we've got the EOC open, some potential shelters.
Alex Jakubowski, Director of Emergency Management. So as we all see, this is the transition point from rain to snow. Once the snow finally arrives, we're looking at probably 12 to 16 inches. And the major factor is going to be the wind speeds. They're kind of all over the board, but at the very least, it's going to be 60-mile-an-hour winds, but could be as high as 70 to 75-mile-an-hour winds well into tonight. So snow drifts and visibility is going to be very limited, if not total whiteout conditions. We already put out alerts through various agencies to have everyone limit their travel, if not just flat out stay home to minimize any stranded motorists. We do have the EOC activated as of 8 o'clock this morning with a partial staff, just basically our key functions. And we do have the exhibit building activated with Red Cross personnel to act as a shelter. It just so happens we've also got the advance party for Team Rubicon, who is showing up today and tomorrow for a wildfire mitigation project over Gamble Oaks and Saddlewood. I don't know if that's actually gonna happen, but I've already touched base with them, and the people that they do have here are willing to help out in any capacity, so I'm gonna tap into them if Red Cross needs some help managing that shelter. And yesterday I did take out my shelter trailer out to Agate and pre-position it at the Agate school, and the fire chief is aware of that. So I think we're good to ride this out, barring some of those stranded motorists, which cause the first responders to have to go out and rescue them. But I do know that all 3 snowcats that the fire and sheriff's office operate are already pre-positioned and ready to respond.
Okay, thanks.
Any question?
60 to 70 mile, is that gusts or steady state?
Gusts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The snow probably until about midnight or so. So we're probably not going to emerge on the other side until sometime tomorrow morning, when everything should let up between snow and winds, when Road and Bridge can actually start making headway on clearing the roads.
Okay, it didn't look like temperatures were gonna cross freezing until around noon, or I know temperatures are dropping, but.
Yeah, it's already transitioning. I think we have a sort of a preview of this transition just because we're higher. Some of the areas around us in lower altitudes won't get this probably for another half hour, maybe an hour, just due to our altitude.
All right, well, we have our time hacked then. Got any questions or?
No, just word of warning, wear a hat.
All right,
Thank you.
Alex.
Thank you.
Do we have any other staff reports?
No, I just want to just commend Alex and the Sheriff's Office and Road and Bridge and all the fire departments. They've been planning on this storm for 2 days. So I think we're as well prepared as we can. We'll try to get as much communication about the storms. Once roads start closing, we do expect some road closures. 86 and 24, we'll hear that last minute from CDOT. They don't give us much advance warning. When those, and 70, if those things shut down, then we really do get to a standstill. We'll look at, as you know, we're going to be closing the offices fairly soon today, and then about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on how the winds go and how the roads get cleared, we'll decide on what tomorrow's operations look like.
Alrighty. Next portion we have is open public comment, and this is for items that aren't on the agenda for today. If you got anything that won't be covered specifically under discussion or action that you want us to hear about, this is the time. We have, okay, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to discussion items. Just because of the weather, I think we had some folks here that wanted to talk specifically about the resolution regarding the Second Amendment sanctuary. If you're here for that, could you raise your hand? Okay, that I thought was most of the crowd, so if you guys don't object, I'd like to take that as the first discussion item so we can get people back on their way home as soon as possible. So, so we have a resolution that was prepared a couple of weeks ago, right after our last meeting, in fact. It's in response to the state's consideration of what they are calling a red flag bill. We had concerns with it as a commission, had seen what other counties had been doing, and had generally adopted the language that others in the state have been using. But essentially it talks through the what we see as the constitutional basis of our objections to it, quotes several Supreme Court cases that have considered that the actual meat of the resolution is a just affirmation by this commission that we support our sheriff's discretion in enforcement, and then it operationalizes our oath as commissioners to support the state and federal constitutions by not appropriating any funds for any activity that would violate those constitutions. But I'd like to invite the sheriff up to speak first, and then we'll take public comment.
Thank you.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much. Sheriff Tim Norton, reference the known as the red flag bill. I just would like to state right off the bat that I'm not for the red flag bill. It has a lot of different issues in there. It's not well written in my it's unsafe for me and my deputies and any other law enforcement officer in this state that would have to enforce this. I see the violence potential growing if we just show up, want to have to take people's guns. I don't believe that. This appears to be totally written unconstitutional, violating the Second Amendment rights. And myself, as a sheriff, I've been sworn to uphold the Constitution. And if this passes, I won't be able to do that. The oath, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's my plan, is to uphold the Constitution. So I will not be in favor of the red flag bill. I encourage the commissioners to go ahead with the sanctuary county of this. Keep in mind, though, just the little parts that people also don't recognize in this bill is, what are we going to do with all these weapons when we have to take them? We don't have the facility or the room to house all these weapons. We don't have the manpower right now to do what we need to do as a sheriff's office. But if we throw all these weapons on, we have to inventory them, keep track of them, be able to return the weapons. That would put a big strain on our office as well. But there's no signs of any treatment, no talk of any treatment. It's just a violation of the Second Amendment rights, and I'm not for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll take public comment on the issue. If we have anybody that would like to speak in support or against. I would ask that you give your name and your address, and then please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
I will try to keep my comments to 3 minutes or less. My name is Patty Lampman. I reside at 31960 Whitaker Circle in Elizabeth, Colorado. First thing I want to say before I make my comments is that nobody in this room has a right to question my patriotism to my country. And that happened to me this week. I got called a commie bitch and told I'd be slept back.
Ma'am, your comments are to us, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I served my country for 20 years, honorably. I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Part of that oath was not me determining what's considered constitutional and non-constitutional. I believe in the Second Amendment, I have guns, and I believe in every amendment after that, right? I also learned during my 20 years, like I said, that it's not within my authority to just make a decision what's constitutional and non-constitutional, like I believe it is not within the BoCC's authority to determine what's considered constitutional and unconstitutional. It's within the BoCC's authority and the sheriff's authority to carry out the laws that are given at the state level. You don't get to write resolutions when you don't agree with them. There is a process and a governance that you can go to your legislatures and you can make the bill better. You can work in a bipartisan way to put the protections in there that need to be put in there in regards to mental health that can help keep our communities safe, our police officers safe, and our children safe, right? I'm a little concerned that if you pass this resolution, that you're putting our county at liability. You're putting the sheriff at personal liability, that if the ERPO law is passed and he does not comply, he will be held in contempt. And if he is held in contempt, he can be arrested, and our law enforcement can be taken over by the state. We don't have the money in this county to afford to pay for our roads to be maintained, but yet we think we have the money to pay to take on this liability. And we voted this good sheriff into office, and now you're gonna hold him personally liable should he not comply with the law. That's what's gonna happen. He could lose his farm. He could lose everything that he's worked for. And God forbid if somebody he doesn't comply with the law, he doesn't take weapons from somebody who has a mental health issue, and that person takes those guns it would be an irresponsible gun owner, takes the guns and goes out and shoots up his neighbor, kills his family, goes into one of our schools and shoots up a school, that blood will be on all of your hands, and that liability will be on all of you. So I'm gonna ask you as commissioners, instead of feeding into the rhetoric that's happening in this state, across this state, that you work within a governance and you meet with your legislatures. We all have a right to meet with our legislatures and tell them what we agree and don't agree with and how we can make this bill better so that it doesn't, so that you don't feel like it's taking away your rights. Thank you.
Alrighty, we had a few folks walk in. We've moved the discussion of the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution up to the front of discussion so we can get people home in the weather. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak on this topic? Please.
Thank you for listening to me. My name is Tim Hill. I reside at 408 Chelsea Court in Elizabeth.
I don't hear well. Can you say your name again?
Tim Hill.
Thank you.
I live at 408 Chelsea Court in Elizabeth. I am for you guys passing this resolution. I believe that this law violates several amendments, constitutional amendments. The second, taking away guns from law-abiding citizens without due process of law. That's what our Constitution is about. You're taking that away from citizens no matter what. And there are laws in place for mental health already. Someone's family members deemed, someone unsafe or something. There are laws already to put them in where they can be checked out for 72 hours or whatever. But this is putting our sheriff in danger, just coming to someone's house that's unaware of a situation and trying to take a gun. I mean, I believe that's going to cause a lot of conflict from a law-abiding citizen. I believe this law is nothing more than the beginning of a big gun grab, and I'm just not for it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Forrest Provience. I reside at 35799 Pheasant Run here in Elizabeth, and I would like to see the board support this resolution for a variety of reasons. It's an overreach on our Second, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendments. It also is rife for abuse by spouses, by other family members when there's some kind of internal fight or disagreement, that it could be used to weaponize the sheriff's department. It's also, there was a comment made about the state taking over the functions of the sheriff if the sheriff fails to enforce this law as written by the state of Colorado and potentially signed by the governor. I am saying right here that we elected a gentleman to serve us in Sheriff Tim Norton. He is the highest elected official, law enforcement official in the country. There is not a single other law enforcement official that is elected by the populace. Tim Norton was elected by the populace of Elbert County. And if the state overreaches or the federal government overreaches, I will stand with this board and I will stand with this sheriff to make sure that the person that I chose to protect my rights in my area of residency is protected by me. I'm very, very our state that believe that they can speak for us in our small rural areas, and I think that we as a community need to stand up. We need to take the risk. We need to draw the line in the sand and saying we will not comply. I will not comply. This is a huge risk for the sheriff's department, as Sheriff Norton stated. The requirements that they will be required to maintain safety of these firearms. As a former law enforcement officer, I know what it's like just to take care of evidence that's taken in a crime, to make sure that it's safe. Now you're taking property from a person that has value, and the ordinance, the state statute is written, there are people in this county that own firearms that are worth tens of thousands of dollars for one firearm. And if that firearm is just chunked in a closet somewhere, that person in the 24 hours or 365 days later that he's finally allowed his weapons back could find a $10,000 weapon completely useless. Who is liable for that? During Hurricane Katrina, the sheriff's department in the parish there, they confiscated weapons from the populace for public safety. Those weapons were stored in a leaky warehouse. 95% of those weapons that were returned were useless. I really, truly encourage this board to support this resolution and support our sheriff and support the will of the people of Elbert County. Thank you very much.
Sir, I missed your name. Could you please repeat that for me?
Yes, sir. It's Forrest with 2 R's. Last name Purviance, Purviance.
My name is John Gutenberg. I live at 2069 Woodpecker Lane, Elizabeth, Colorado. I support the board in the sanctuary of the Second Amendment. 45 years ago, I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments, is the Bill of Rights, in case you don't know, is an absolute. Not if, maybe, it's an absolute. And the founders wrote it that way. Let me tell you a little story. My brother, my late brother, God rest his soul, had an allegation made against him. The sheriff came out and took all his guns. He got a lawyer, went to court, and the allegations were found to be false. It cost him thousands of dollars to get his guns back. And, you know, I don't have thousands of dollars to get my guns back. And, no offense, Sheriff, but I don't think we have a big enough sheriff department that can cover the county on any given day. That's why there's people like me out there, law-abiding citizens out there that are willing to support these guys in any way I can. So when I come home and find somebody burglarizing my house, I may call 911, but I'm going to take action. And I'm going to take action right then and there. I don't want to wait. I don't want to have, you know, call the sheriff, and by the time he gets out there, it's no longer a burglary, it's a murder scene because me and my wife are both killed. I'm not 20 years old anymore. I can't get into hand-to-hand combat with somebody. I'm too old for that stuff. That's why I carry a weapon. And I support this amendment, and I think the people who want this amendment, a lot of them are people in the state capitol that have armed bodyguards with them all the time, so they don't have to worry about it. Well, I don't have an armed bodyguard. I can't afford an armed bodyguard. I mean, I went through the due process. I got myself a concealed weapons permit. I've been checked out by CBI, the FBI, you know, you name it, I've been checked by it. You know, not only do I have been checked by, when I say I've been checked by the FBI, I had a top secret clearance when I was in the military. And they just don't give that to somebody walking down the street. And if I can't be trusted with a gun, then nobody should be trusted with a gun. But I support this amendment. I think it's silly for them to come in here and try to take our guns away from us. And it would be, for the sheriffs, that's putting them in great danger. Because you're going to have somebody.
John, I'll have to ask you to wrap up, but thank you.
Okay, that's it. That's all I
appreciate
can
it.
say. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. experimental republic that has been a great success for 228 years. In the Constitution, it says that if we want to change that and that experiment fails at any time, that we can go through it by amending the Constitution in a legal way. I support this resolution as a sanctuary county because I see that this law that's being looked at by the state is unconstitutional. The main reason I see it that way is because over the course of history, we have the presumption of innocence. That judgment was made by a judge in 1885 in a case of Coffin versus the United States. It is not in the Constitution, yet the presumption of innocence has been set as a precedence for the last 135 years. Because of that, it is up to the prosecution in any type of case to bear the burden of proof that somebody is in violation of the law, and therefore the weapon should be taken from them, or they should be sent to jail, or they should be issued a fine, whether it is a parking ticket or domestic violence or a murder scene. And so without that presumption of innocence, nobody is going to be able to be held in true freedom anymore. And you know, the Bill of Rights, as several people have mentioned this morning, the Bill of Rights grants us freedoms. Freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of petition, freedom of assembly, all of these things, and we are granted those freedoms until we prove that we are no longer able to handle those freedoms without violation of the law. And so we should therefore be allowed to maintain the freedom of our Second Amendment until we are proven that we are in violation through something that we have done. There was a movie that came out about 16 years ago when I was dating my wife called Minority Report, and it was about thought crimes. And that is the road that we are going down, that we are trying to look into people's minds and accuse them and prosecute them and take their weapon and take their freedoms away before they actually commit an act. And so I urge you guys to look at the constitutionality on a state and federal level when you guys are considering this resolution. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jared Doherty. I reside at 660 Madrid Court in Elizabeth. A lot has been said about the Constitution, and that is of the utmost importance on this resolution. But I want to just briefly talk about how it practically plays out and what's already happened. There are a couple of examples, and I don't need to go into all the details, but Maryland already has a red flag law, and they have already entered and shot and killed a man while carrying out a red flag check or a red flag firearm confiscation. So imagine the conflict that our state will be in when you have a red flag law clashing with Make My Day and Stand My Ground, okay, that we all know that this state has. So now you put citizens and law enforcement at war. Imagine you're laying in your bed at night and your door is kicked in and you have a split second to decide whether to fire because you have told yourself for years that you will defend your home and your family. And now you have someone that you do not know who they are coming in your house. Law enforcement on the other end of it has no idea what they're coming in on. And so you're putting your citizens and your law enforcement agencies at odds. To carry out something in the name of keeping someone safe or hoping that someone isn't harmed or killed, people are going to get killed, guaranteed. It's already happening in red flag states, and it's going to happen in Colorado in counties that carry out red flag confiscations. So now, because we don't want something bad to happen, bad things are going to happen. So you are forcing situations that are going to be lethal between citizens and law enforcement for, like was just stated by Mr. Mason, for crimes that have not yet been committed. There is already due process in our laws if someone is accusation of mental instability, that sets a very, very dangerous precedence in this country for what that could lead to. So while it may seem good on the surface, think of the long-term consequences of something like this and where this will lead. And remember, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So we know where we've been, let's not go there again. Thank you.
My name is Drake Deitzel. My address is 6063 Arrowhead Trail, Elizabeth, Colorado. I wanted to come out here today and support the board's decision in making this a sanctuary county. I believe that if we don't have this, like the previous speaker just said, we will have violence on both ends. When you wake up in the middle of the night, someone breaks into your house, you don't know if it's someone breaking in, sheriff's department, could be all sorts of things, as well as it would be an elimination of due process, which is a very core principle of our legal and judicial system here in America. As far as with that, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty is a very core principle, like I just said. And I believe that following out these red flag laws would be a blatant disregard of the Constitution and a flagrant miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. That's all I have to say about that, but thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close public comment on this, but Grant or Rick, do you have anything you'd like to add to what we've heard?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Grant.
You know, when I read the red flag law, I was puzzled of the logic behind it because it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And again, as most of you know in here, I'm a naturalized citizen. It took me 15 years to get my citizenship. I'm proud of it. And I have guns. I rarely shoot them, but they're there just in case. But because I was born in a different country, I went out and got the Constitution. I've got a hardcover book in my office that I carry. And I agree with one of the gentlemen here that said, at least as to my reading, is that it puzzled me as it related to the Second, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendments, because it didn't seem to tie to any of them. But that's not the real point. The real point is, what are we trying to accomplish? What we're trying to accomplish, in my view, is that we're citizens of a rural-type county. Having guns is just a natural thing. But more importantly, the thing that puzzled me the most is that just an allegation could cause an action. And I don't know about anybody in this room, but I know that on occasion I may get in an argument with one of my neighbors or something like that, and the possible outcomes here are way beyond anything that's rational. And I've got a whole, I always make notes for myself. I can go on forever on this thing, but the whole point is that this state legislature right now is doing all sorts of weird things. They're basically condemning the oil and gas laws. They're killing the meaningfulness of the electoral college. You know, one gentleman here mentioned that some of these guns were, I remember reading and studying a little bit about what Australia did when they went through this exercise, and they basically took everybody's gun away, even museum pieces, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I support this sanctuary thing, and then the other thing that puzzles me a little bit too is the hypocrisy of being against this when we've got sanctuary cities. You know, the sanctuary issue is odd. I've said enough.
I think my biggest concern, you know, has to do with due process. I think it will not, or may not be present. So like we talked about, you know, innocent until proven guilty. So that is a big concern to me. And also, like somebody mentioned, mental health. You know, they're worried about mental health, but it doesn't provide any provisions on how we're going to handle the people that maybe have a mental health problem. That's what I've got to say.
Yeah, kind of build on what my fellow commissioners said. The law in itself is a problem. The resolution specifically mentions the one under consideration, but more broadly, it talks to, again, the sheriff's discretion in upholding his oath to support the constitutions of the state and the nation. I think people can agree. Obviously, we've got some disagreement within this room over whether the law itself is good or bad, but I do kind of take exception with the law is written, so you got to follow it. You must assume that it's constitutional. Our oath as commissioners and all elected officials is to uphold the constitutions of the U.S. and the state. Not to blindly assume that other people are telling us what the right thing to do is. I kind of think the Nuremberg trials after World War II kind of displayed openly that just following orders is not a defense. We're required to do what's right within our oaths. You know, the Constitution doesn't grant rights, it affirms them, and it should protect them. We kind of glossed over a lot of these, but you know, the Fifth Amendment states that people will not be deprived of property without due process of law. There is a due process issue here. An accusation can be made without you even knowing it's been made, that you are a substantial risk to yourself or others. A judge can hear evidence from one and an order can be published. This specific law actually has a duty to warn for law enforcement. So even before a decision is made, you could have law enforcement people required to call your place of business and let them know that you're a danger to yourself and others. Judge may later determine that's not true, but damages to reputations have already been done. The Sixth Amendment, again, people are required to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusations against them. That's missing from this bill. The 14th kind of re-enshrined that after the Civil War. Again, talking about probable cause before removing anybody's property. You know, these are principle level things that shouldn't have to be debated, and it's unfortunate that we are. But all of these impact our Second Amendment right to bear arms, which specifically says shall not be infringed. The bill that's being discussed is a solution in search of a problem. We have a solution. There's an M1 mental health hold. If somebody's a danger to themselves and others, I fully support law enforcement removing them from that situation, being assessed and getting treatment. Walking into somebody's home and taking away one tool, taking away firearms, and leaving them in distress in a kitchen full of knives, with gas cans in the garage, a 4,000-pound vehicle, axes in the shed. You know, you can list anything that can become a weapon or left. I mean, this is clearly focused on infringing on Second Amendment rights. It would be nice to think that we could, and I would urge everybody that spoke today to contact not only our representatives, Representative Lewis, Senator Sonnenberg, are already against this bill. I can tell you that. I've talked to them. I've sent my personal opinion forward. I've gone up and we've written letters on other bills. Unfortunately, this is a year where there's not fundamentally flawed better. It just needs to be, that bill needs to die. I hope it does. If it doesn't, what's in this resolution still stands. We support our elected sheriff in determining what is right and proper within his oath. We will follow our oath. We will not appropriate any funds or provide any support for unconstitutional activities. The taking of firearms, the sheriff mentioned his evidence room. Well, we fund his evidence room, and we fund that evidence room to maintain evidence of crimes. This doesn't address crimes. I think the term pre-crime was used earlier. That's just not appropriate use of an evidence room. I really don't know what he would do or should do should he come into somebody else's property that's not evidence of a crime. That's not a proper use of taxpayer dollars. So, the red flag bill aside, I am against that, but I think this resolution is written, just provides a very clear articulation that we support our sheriff's discretion. We are not forcing him as commissioners to do anything or not do anything. We trust the people that elected him to have made a good choice, and I think they did. That's really all I had to add to that. We do have this under discussion. It's been fairly public, obviously. People are aware of this. In the 2 years I've been in office, this is probably the third most, the issue that's gotten the top 3 comments from public. It's just going through emails and voicemails. There's been 35 people prior to this meeting that had reached out through email or voicemail and contacted us. Only one was not supportive of taking this action. I do think this is what the people of the county want. I do think this is what our sheriff deserves in terms of support from this commission. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to move that we move this action from discussion item to an action item.
Good with that. No objection, we can do that.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to move this to action. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The motion to take this for action has been approved. I'll accept a motion to actually pass the resolution.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass Resolution 19- to be determined, a resolution regarding the preservation of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and designation of Elbert County as a Second Amendment sanctuary county.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. I think it'd be appropriate to actually read the text of the resolution before we vote. If you guys want to, or I can from up here. I'll just go ahead. So, granted, already stated the title. So, as it reads, at a regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for Elbert County, State of Colorado, held at the Administrative Building in Kiowa on Wednesday, the 13th day of March, AD 2019, there were present Chris Richardson, Commissioner, Chairman, Rick Pettit, Commissioner, Grant Thayer, Commissioner, Dallas Schroeder, Clerk to the Board. Whereas Colorado Revised Statutes, or CRS 30-11-101, provides that counties have the authority to adopt and enforce ordinances and resolutions regarding health, safety, and welfare issues. And whereas CRS also provides the powers of the county as a body politic and corporate to be exercised by a Board of County Commissioners. And whereas the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the inalienable and individual right of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia versus Heller, 554 U.S. 570 in 2008, decision affirmed an individual's right to possess firearms unconnected with service in a militia for traditional lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. And this is not. And whereas the Supreme Court in the United States, in McDonald versus Chicago, 561 U.S. 742 in 2010 affirmed that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms is protected under the Second Amendment as incorporated by the Due Process Clause in the 14th Amendment against the states. And whereas the Supreme Court in the United States versus Miller 307 U.S. 174 in 1939 opined that firearms were part of ordinary military equipment or with use could contribute to the common defense as protected by the Second Amendment. And whereas Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution of Colorado provides that persons having certain inalienable rights, among them which may be reckoned the right of enjoying and defending their lives and liberty, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and of seeking and obtaining their safety and happiness. And whereas Article 2, Section 13 of the Constitution of Colorado provides that the right of no person to keep and bear arms in defense of his home, person and property, or in aid of the civil power when therefore legally summoned, shall be called into question. And whereas Article 2, Section 11 of the Constitution of Colorado provides that no ex post facto law nor law impairing the obligation of contracts or retrospective in its operation shall be passed by the General Assembly. And whereas Article 2, Section 7 of the Constitution of Colorado provides that people shall be secure in their persons, papers, homes, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures. And whereas it is the desire of the Board to declare its support of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and the Colorado Constitution protecting citizens' inalienable and individual rights to keep and bear arms. And whereas the members of this board took an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the laws of the State of Colorado insofar as they are constitutional. And whereas the Elbert County Board of County Commissioners believes the right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental constitutional right, with any restrictions to such right being subject to strict scrutiny, and then justified only when such restrictions accomplish a compelling governmental interest, and even then, only when such law or policy is sufficiently narrowly tailored to achieve the goal that is, with there being no less restrictive alternative capable of accomplishing the same interest. And whereas the members of this board believe that any reasonable restriction upon the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, which meets the aforementioned standards of the prior paragraph, would also be required to meet constitutional standards for due process, presumption of innocence, and conviction based on a standard of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, or such similar disqualifier meeting the same standard in order for citizens to be disqualified from exercising the rights laid out within the Second Amendment. And whereas this board interprets the red flag law or extreme risk protection order as presented in Colorado Bill HB 191177 as flawed, likely to be abused, and insufficient to safeguard constitutional liberties such as the presumption of innocence and the Second Amendment. Moreover, it is this board's belief that in the event someone is sufficiently mentally unstable such that they present a danger to themselves or to others, that the 72-hour hold law, or the M1 hold law, already provides ample opportunity for law enforcement to take that individual into custody and evaluate whether they remain a danger to themselves or others, while also more effectively safeguarding that person's constitutional rights. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Elbert, by the authority granted to the board by the laws of the State of Colorado and the people of Elbert County, Colorado, to stand and defend their rights and liberties, which are guaranteed by the United States and Colorado Constitutions, do hereby declare this resolution to be a Second Amendment preservation resolution designating Elbert County as a Second Amendment sanctuary county. Be it further resolved that this board affirms its support for the duly elected sheriff of Elbert County, Colorado, in the exercise of his sound discretion, and affirms its resolve to support decisions by our sheriff to not enforce any unconstitutional firearms laws against any citizen. Be it further resolved that this board will not authorize or appropriate government funds, resources, employees, agencies, contractors, buildings, detention centers, or offices for the purpose of enforcing law that unconstitutionally infringes on the right of people to keep and bear arms. Upon a motion duly made and seconded, the foregoing resolution is considered. We have a motion and a second on the table. Resolution's been read. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. I do thank everybody for coming out to speak on this today. Again, weather's starting to turn, so we can take about a 5-minute recess here if people want to head on out, and we'll.
I recommend just adjourning the meeting, and we'll carry everything forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would make a motion that we continue all unheard items, including the land thing for this at 1 o'clock in the interest of the safety of our public.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue all items on this agenda to,
Make sure that we have a time and date certain.
okay,
for that.
okay.
I'll amend my motion to say on March the 27th, beginning at 9 o'clock.
Okay, with 1 o'clock for land use?
And 1 o'clock for land use.
Okay, so motion and a second amended to continue this meeting with all regular meeting items to be heard on March 27th at 09 and land use items at 1300, 1 p.m. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Outside of the meeting, I want to thank each and every one of the people for and against this for coming out. It's interesting for me to hear what drives people's viewpoints.